Vishwa is an online platform. It's for everyday change makers, social champions who have been serving decades to make a difference and to make our world a better place. It's a crowdfunding and a crowdsourcing platform. We connect people who would like to make a difference with those people who would like to donate, volunteer, or give away materials and that they are not using and would like to put it under circulation.
Roshni has given life to the noble thought, psychiatry at your doorstep. With this project, we are reaching the unreachable, the underprivileged. And in this noble journey, Vishwa has been with us. Thanks a lot to Vishwa, who has helped us to reach people and also to raise funds.
Vishwa Talks is an initiative by Vishwa.org. Vishwa Talks are a series of weekly webinars hosted every Saturday that are focused on gaining in-depth knowledge from the experts on a wide range of topics that are pertinent to the current context.
One of the best collaborations that I had in 2021 is with Vishwa Talks.
Vishwa Talks is a wonderful platform, both for the speakers and the listeners. They cover varied topics, right from mental health to the environment. And it's so informative and so enjoyable.
All these are very enriching, and I congratulate Vishwa organization for their endeavors, and I wish them all the best for many more sessions in the new year, and Happy New Year to all of you.
Hello, good morning, namaskaram, and welcome everyone to Vishwa Talks. My name is Prerna, and I thank you for taking the time to join us today. For those of you who have attended a Vishwa Talk before, a warm welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, here is a little bit about us. Vishwa Talks is a space to expand the horizons of your mind. Every webinar, we call experts from different domains to discuss and examine opinions, issues, problems, and perspectives. Each webinar is an interactive session where we all walk away with more respect for each other and a deeper understanding of the topic at hand. Soil health and human health are interconnected, and healthy soil lead to healthy lives of all forms. In today's talk, we are honored to collaborate with Aranya Agriculture Alternatives. Aranya is a 21 years old NGO and that aims to provide alternative solutions to present conventional and chemical agricultural practices. And in that process, Aranya is empowering women and improving the livelihood of small and marginal farmers. I welcome today's guest speaker, Ms. Neha Kapula. She is a nature educator, permaculture facilitator, and food and nutrition professional who is extremely passionate about working with and for the communities. She is driven by her inquisitiveness to observe and interact with all nature forms, which enables her to show the world a perspective different from others through her documentation. Sneha has been closely working with the women farmers, supporting regenerative agricultural system and women farmer producer organizations in Telangana. We are honored to have you on Vishwa Talks, Ms. Sneha, and we are deeply inspired by your journey. Before we get started, I would like to inform our audience that our speaker will be taking questions from you after your main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat box. This is going to be an interactive session. Ms. Neha is going to interact with you in her main talk. So you can use your virtual raise hand option if you want to put forward any point, or you can type it in the chat box. Now, without further ado, I may invite our speaker to please start today's Vishwa Talk.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Vishwa Talks, for having me on your platform today and giving me an opportunity to talk about permaculture. I would request all the audience in here to just turn on your videos so I can look at you and then speak where there is more eye contact and interaction. And also, when we are discussing about permaculture, if there are any questions where I ask some question, it would be nice if you could also interact by raising your hand and we can communicate further. Thank you. I would, yeah. Prerna, I don't have an option for this share. I did get.
Yeah.
Is my screen visible?
What you're sharing is not visible.
I think there's some technical glitch. It's not letting me share the presentation.
You can start the session. You can share the PPT with us.
Okay.
And then
I'm just going to share it to you, okay?
Sorry about the technical glitch. Ma'am, you can start the session.
Yes, I'm so sorry about that. So how many of you here have heard the term permaculture before, or is this your first time listening to it, or you have heard about it, and what do you know about the word permaculture? If any of you in the audience are aware of it, you can please raise your hands and or just type it in the chat box. It's the first time you've heard of it before. Okay. What are the different kinds of agriculture have you heard about? Is it just the conventional agriculture or the organic agriculture? Did you hear different sorts of different school of thoughts in agriculture? Have you heard of different school of thoughts in in agriculture? Okay, so permaculture is a conscious design where you just mimic the natural ecosystem and human involves in the system. So when you see a natural ecosystem, everything goes in its own way, in its own pace, where humans are not involved as much. Whereas in a conventional agriculture system or any other agricultural system, there's a lot of human involvement that happens. There's a lot of inputs as humans, we get into it and we do a lot of work. Whereas in a forest ecosystem, it just happens in a very natural way where the inputs from humans is as less as possible. So permaculture is such a system where the human interference is as less as possible, and you'll just let it go as per the nature's flow. So here's a definition that you can see on the screen. Permaculture is a conscious design and maintenance of the cultivated ecosystems which have diversity, stability, and resilience of the natural ecosystems. So this is a definition as such, but permaculture as such doesn't have any definition. You can make up your own definition. You can make up whatever you understand by the term permaculture. You, based on your experience, based on your understanding, you can always frame your own definition. There is no perfect definition to it. So permaculture is a contraction of two words: permanent agriculture. Permanence, by the word permanence, you all know, which means permanent, and culture, agriculture, is broken down into culture. So agriculture is not just about growing food, it's also entwined with culture. If there is no culture, there is no agriculture. So permaculture is just a word of combining two different terms, which is permanence and also agriculture. Based on these two terms, they've coined the term permaculture. So permaculture has ethics and principles like any other system, like every organization or every school of thought or every institution has some ethics, some principles, some goals, some achievements. So just like that, permaculture has some ethics. These ethics are the strong foundation for this school of thought. So what are the ethics of permaculture? It's care of earth, care of people, and fair share. What do you understand by care of earth? Anyone from the audience? You can just raise your hand and answer. Okay, care of earth is nothing but taking care of earth and giving back to the nature, giving back to the earth. It's not just about you taking everything from the earth, you extracting everything of it, but also giving back to it, because you are the one who are living on it. It is not always a one way flow or one way system, where it has to be both the ways, where it is giving you and you are giving back. So because it is giving you, it is also your responsibility, it is also our responsibility as humans to take care of the earth. So this is the first ethic of permaculture, where care of earth is very important, which is for all the life systems, whatever's living on the earth. It's not just about trees, it's not just about grasses or shrubs, it's all integration of all the elements that you're going to take care of. I see some hands raised. You can unmute yourself and say if you'd like to say something, sir. All right. Care of people. Care of people. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you can see me, I suppose. I just.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, sorry about slightly confusion. See, yeah, I am. I would like to say that I am fully aware about this. Something very similar. It's a cattle-based farming, which is actually happening in somebody whom I know very well in West Godavari district. In fact, coming to the point which is right, which you are discussing and explaining right now, that is, see allowing the soil microbes and the nutrients in the soil to remain as it is with the least disturbance, and how it is being. Of course, I don't want to go on and on, because the point is there is an example here of a gentleman who is continuing the cattle-based agriculture of for the fourth. He's a fourth generation farmer. Absolutely no chemicals, no pesticides. He allows the buffaloes, the dung and the urine, and that's how he does it.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing your inputs. If while we are discussing about the current topic, I think it would be nice if we can just talk about, when I'm talking about care of earth, you can give more inputs on care of earth. If there is any other discussions aside, apart from it, we can always talk at the end of the discussion rather than breaking the flow. That would be great. Thank you. So the second principle of second ethic of permaculture is care of the people. So everybody is talking about care of earth, planting more trees, taking care of animals, taking care of all the microorganisms and everything. So many of our focus, many of our generations, or the current focus is on care of earth, but there is also something which is very crucial for all of us, is the care of people. So if people are doing this, people care is also important, because we ourselves as beings on this earth are people. So we need to also care for people, and then care also for the earth. It's not just about earth, it's also caring for the people. So this is the second ethic of permaculture, where in care of people you talk about sharing of resources, passing it on to the new generations. Care of people doesn't mean taking care of the whole world, but it's about taking care of, be it yourself, be it your family, the family next door, or anybody in your circle. It's not just like when we talk about care of people, it's about you taking care of the whole world. It should start from yourself, it should start from your family, it should start from your extended family, and it can spread beyond. And fair share depends, fair share applies in different contexts. When we talk about fair share, it's about fair share within yourself, fair share within your houses, fair share within your office workspace. Fair share in a broader context could be sharing of resources or passing it on to the new generations, next generations. So imagine we are using up all the renewable sources, non-renewable sources of energy right now. It's just that we are thinking about our generation right now, and we are not thinking about sharing those resources with the next generation. This is very, very important. If we don't think about fair share now, imagine the next generations, your kids or our kids are not going to have anything to utilize from the nature, whatever the nature is giving. So this is the third principle of third ethic of permaculture, which is very important. So the permaculture basis forms on these three ethics, which is a care of earth, care of people, and fair share. So what is the need of permaculture? Why do we have to talk about permaculture right now? Do you think there is a need for us to talk about it? be it sustainable agriculture, be it organic, or be it permaculture, any school of thought. Why are we talking about this right now? You can type your answers in the chat box. Have do you think do you ever think of the crisis that we as humans, or we as nation, is the whole world is facing? What are the crises that we are facing right now? Why do we have to talk about food? Why do we have to talk about soil? Why do we have to talk about conservation? Why do we have to talk about biodiversity? Why now? Why are we talking about it? Why is there a lot of a lot of discussions happening, lot of talks happening, lot of uh, policies that are coming up? Why hasn't it been before, and why now? To avoid soil degradation, soil depletion, health of people, climate change, global warming, to protect soil from pollution. These are some of the answers that we have received from our audience. Anything else that you could think of? Yes, you're right. So ecological, to save for the future generation. So ecological crisis is one of the most important crises that we as humans are facing nowadays. So this ecological crisis comprises of, be it soil degradation, loss of biodiversity, loss of trees, animals going extinct, different various things. This ecological crisis has made us all to think about what's happening, and even all the actions that we as humans are doing is impacting us in a very negative way. So when you don't, what's happening when your soil is lost? What's happening? The nutrients are depleting out of your soil. What's happening when the biodiversity is being lost? It is affecting humans in a direct way, which was indirectly earlier, but now it is direct. To increase the organic content in the soil and soil. Yes, you're all right from the chat box. Yes. When we talk about soil ecological crisis and soil is a very important element that we have to consider when we talk about health. When a couple, like when COVID hit humans, the last 2 years we all have been struggling. It has affected our lives and livelihoods, and everybody is now running after food, good food, healthy food. Everybody needs good food, but what is happening is, are you really getting good food? Where are you getting your food from? How is it grown? Is it grown organically? Is it just coming out of from industrial farming or conventional farming, where a lot of pesticides are being pumped into the soil, where the soils are out of nutrients? How can we call it something that we are eating healthy food, or food with rich in nutrients? So this ecological crisis is one thing that we are facing now, and also loss of biodiversity. We all look for same food, same kind of system. There is no diversity in our thinking. Thinking is very important. When we think about anything, diversity is something that we forget about. But anything, when you're eating or when you're growing, when you're shopping, when you're working, be it in a family or anywhere, you need to have diverse systems. Only when a system is diverse, that is when you call something resilient. The second crisis is public health crisis. Like we spoke about COVID, how people have been suffering from different chronic diseases and different ailments. Again, if you think about why this is happening, there are several reasons, and all those reasons you find humans playing a major role in all of them. And the third crisis is also livelihoods of people, livelihoods of the farmers, especially because they are the ones who are feeding us. They have been struggling a lot to grow the food for us, and also the kind of agriculture system now we are in is taking a lot of inputs from external sources rather than depending on their own source. So these are the three important crises that has been affecting we as humans, and it is very important for us to look at them and what changes can we make in our own way, in our simple way, to avoid these crises to worsen and make our lives worse. Next. So I would like to talk about the principles. So there are 3 ethics of permaculture. At the same time, the 13 principles of permaculture, which talks about various things. It's not just one thing. So the principles not just apply on a agricultural land, on a office level, or at a farm level. It is something that you can apply in your life as well. So the first principle of permaculture here is observe and interact. So observation and interaction is very crucial and very important. Observation is not just in the form of observing something randomly. It's about keen observation. Like when you go to a place, when you go to a land, or when you go outside of your home, what is it something that you need to do anywhere? This principle, even with people, even with plants, even with organisms, or even with anything, observe and interact is a very important element. And for any further steps that we take in the nature or in the life, observation and interaction is very important. And the next principle of permaculture that we talk about is catch and store energy. Catch and store energy speaks about catching and storing energy in any form. What is a form of energy? Can anybody type it in your chat box? What is energy that we are talking about here? So energy in this case could be anything. Energy, water is an energy. Yes, light from the sun is an energy. Anything else? Enabling photosynthesis. Okay, so there are different forms of energy. Light is a form of energy, water is a form of energy. So this catch and store energy could be applied again to any context, be it for the farm or be it at a home level. So in the summers, what do our mothers do, or the grandmothers do? Do they all put this papads and vadiums and all that? Yes. Why? Yes. Why do you think they're doing it in the summer? Why do you think they're doing it in summer? Because sun is an energy, right? If the season is lost, then you cannot do it in the next season. This is rainy season. Is there any energy that you are catching, be it at your home? Is there any energy that you're storing? Water, yes, Alifa, you're right. Water is an energy. Like during this season, the monsoon, water is an energy that someone needs to store, because it is a natural energy. It's a renewable one. It is coming to you, and this energy needs to be caught, and this energy needs to be stored. So water is a form of energy, sun is a form of energy, and also solar, going for systems like solar, where you're catching the sun energy and utilizing it properly. So that is what means catch and store energy, which is the second principle of permaculture. Can we move ahead? So the third principle is obtain a yield. So anytime that you're working on something, you're working for someone or you're working for yourself, you always expect something, right? You just don't work just for the sake of working. If you are giving your energy into something, you need to get back that energy in some form. So permaculture, whenever I'm talking, I'm stressing out a lot on energy, because permaculture talks about using less energies. How can we get maximum inputs? That is why I'm stressing a lot on energy. So minimizing our energies is very important. So when we are obtaining a yield, whatever you're working on in any kind of setting, you need to work on something where it is giving you back something. It is not in any form. It could be in any form, be it compassion, be it love, be it knowledge, It's not just about money or something that you are consuming. It could be anything. That's the third principle of permaculture. Next. So apply self-regulation and accept feedback. Could anyone explain what it means? Applying self-regulation. So if you see in a broader context, if you are using a lot of water, so you have shortage of water at your home and you are still using a lot, you generally use a lot of water, but at some point there's no water in your apartments, there's still lack of water storage, the tanker didn't come. So what would you do that day? What would you do you self-regulate yourself, or just keep continuing using the same amount of water that you're getting through? No, right? So you self-regulate, you tell yourself, no, there is no water today, or there's no water that's going to be for the next 1 week, so I have to self-regulate and accept the feedback, accept whatever it's saying. So there's no water, you need to change, and this is feedback for not just that point, but in the future also. Just because you have water doesn't mean you have to keep using it just because you have access to it, but you need to accept the feedback that at some point of time in your life, or at some point of your time in the future, be it next month, be it tomorrow, be it the day after, you are going to face the shortage of water, or face the shortage of resources, face the shortage of electricity. So that is when it is giving you a feedback, and this self-regulation should be continued forever. It's not just for the time where you have the shortage. So this is just an example. It could be applied in any field or any situation that you are in. Next one. So the next one is using and valuing renewable resources. What are renewable resources? Renewable resources, anyone? You can type it in the chat box. Solar energy is a renewable resource. Okay. Wind energy, yes. So there are a lot of renewable resources one can use rather than depending on the non-renewable resources. Like what? You're using a lot of electricity, which means you're generating a lot of coal. For example, if I am using a tractor, if I'm using a heavy machinery on my farm, so it's not just the tractor, it's also the amount of fuel that I'm pouring in, it's also the amount of petrol or diesel or anything that I'm putting in. So all these energies that I'm using, using to just make use of tractor, where I'm putting in a lot of external inputs, and all the energies that I'm using for this particular resource is all non-renewable. Whereas if I'm using a bullock cart, our bullocks, how is their energy? Is it like I use them one time and it exhausts? No, right? You can keep using them. You can keep using them where you're not using things like petrol or diesel or electricity or engine, anything of that sort, where this is like a difference between the renewable and non-renewable. When I'm using donkeys versus using a tractor, when you're using a cycle, or when you're walking, when you're just walking, or when you're using a bike, what's the difference between using a bike and walking? When you're walking, you're just spending your energy. You can eat food and you can get back your energy, right? But when you're using fuel, when you're using your bike, you want to add petrol, you want to add diesel, there's a lot of other sources of energy that you're putting in, which are the non-renewable sources. So most of us, what are we doing right now? Most of us, even if we want to go to a store which is right next to you, which is right under your apartment, just 5 minute walk, you still want to choose a source of a non-renewable source, which is your bike or your car or something else, rather than you using your body. Why don't we start thinking about you using ourselves as an escort? You can go there, bring it, is also an exercise. It's just multiple functions that you're getting when you're using yourself as an energy, not always depending on cars or scooters or any other sources of non-renewable energies. Next. Producing no waste is also one of the principles of permaculture. So when we talk about producing no waste, this is one of the very important principle, and what we have been doing uh, these days is producing a lot of waste. Some of that waste that we are producing is something that cannot degrade or decompose even in million years. So reuse, first there are 4 R's. It's not, we always think about 3 R's, right? What are those 3 R's? Reduce, reuse, and recycle. But we need to start thinking about the other R's as well. One is first rethink before you start producing your waste, rethink before you buy, repair before you buy a new one. So rethink, repair, regenerate, these are all the R's that should also exist along with these R's. Only when you get something is when you think of, recycling, right? Recycling should always be your last option. For example, in the olden days, not even on the olden days, even when I was a kid, I was, so whatever the clothes that used to come from my sister, whatever the books, or whatever the things that my brother used to use, I used to get them back, because he's using it, he's done with it, doesn't mean he's throwing it away and I ask for a new one. I get that resource because it's the next one, it's still in good shape and good, functioning good. So it comes back to me, where I'm not producing waste. I'm not going to throw it away and say that I want a new one. You can always keep it and use it for somebody else, or use it for, give it off to someone, rather than throwing it away or not using it. And also fast fashion these days, you see a lot of people just you know buy a lot of clothes and just stock them up in your shelf, not utilizing them properly. And even if there is a smallest tear on your shirt, smallest tear on your bag, earlier there were days where if a bag is torn, we used to go to the person where they stitch our bags and give it back to you. But now if a bag is torn, you just toss that bag and get a new one. That's how our mindset has become. We have to produce as less waste as possible, because you have to know where your waste is going. Have you ever noticed, or have you ever thought of where your waste that you're generating is going? It is not going to recycling stations. It is not, it is just ending up in nature. It is just ending up outside of your cities, outside of your towns, where you see heaps and heaps of plastic generated, or heaps and heaps of waste that you're being generated. It's like as tall as a building, as tall as an apartment if you go outside. But the moment when you see pass through something like that, you face expression changes. You'll say chee, dirty smell and all that, but you don't realize that is the waste that you are generating by yourself, and you're just asking the GHMC or anybody else, just going and dumping outside. So producing less waste is very easy, something that you can rethink before you do something. I've given you the simplest example, the clothes tearing, and using the same thing, just stitching is the smallest thing that you can do. It's a very easy thing. It's not a, it's not a tedious task or a rocket science for somebody to reuse their clothes or reuse their material, reuse their bags. Next. Design from patterns to details. So again, even here we talk about, we stress on energy that we are putting in when we are designing anything, designing our home, designing our workspace, designing our farmlands, or designing anything. It always starts from the patterns. It's not just like I randomly design something and that should serve my purpose. So when you, what is a pattern? Anybody? So designing from patterns, meaning if I take me as a subject, I have my own patterns, right? I have my own patterns of going to bed. I have my own patterns of getting up. I have my own patterns of eating. I have my own patterns of this thing. So when something is being designed for Sneha, or when something is being designed for Prerna or anybody, it should be designed based on their pattern, and then you then start it into a detailing or designing. It should not be a generic thing where you just design something. Even in nature, if you see, there is always different patterns. Patterns are taken from nature because the energy efficiency is always minimal when you take designs from nature. And even in planting, if we get in a farm context, when we are planting something, it's always not the straight one, it's not always a linear pattern. We look at different patterns, the natural pattern. Well, one of the very common natural pattern in nature is random. So anything that you see happens randomly. It is not like I have to, the seed, the plant tree doesn't think the seed has to fall in a straight line, or the seed has to fall in a 4 rows of lines, or nothing like that. They have their own patterns. It's most of the patterns are random. So when you are designing something, you have to look at different patterns, different designs, and implement in them in such a way, but not in a very conventional linear straight patterns. Next. The next principle of permaculture is integration rather than segregation. This is also a very important principle, and this can be applied in any context. So when you're working together, when you're working on something, is it nicer if you're working by yourself or you're working with a group of people? So if, for example, there's a doctor and who's working on one specific thing, can something happen just with one specialization? There should be an integration, right? It is not just, if for anything you cannot, it's just not the cardiologist who need to make the decision. There should be doctors from different departments coming together and working on something. So integrate rather than segregation of each thing in our lives, in our daily lives. If there is a lot of integration instead of segregation, integration is very important. The more the diversity, the more people you integrate, the more different subjects you integrate, the more beneficial the outcome is. Even when we are talking about agriculture, it's not just about agriculture. Earlier it was different, and now you have different fields in agriculture. Somebody says there's an entomology department, there is a microbiology department, there is a biochemistry department, there is some other department, there's some other department. Unless they all come together and work together, you will not get beneficial solutions. So it's the same thing. It's the same thing even when we are working at home. If I'm pushing my bed from one room to another, it's not just I'm putting in a lot of energy in doing that. Instead, if you have somebody else next to you, ask them, take their help, integrate, and then just finish the work quick instead of doing. So this is just an example I'm giving. So integration is something very important. In integration, we can, in a farm context, we can talk about chickens. When you have chickens and the cocks and the hens placed in a certain place, I cannot just see chickens as something that are giving me eggs, or as something that is giving me meat. You should also look at the different functions. So when I'm seeing chickens and I have cattle, be it cows or buffaloes or donkeys or anything next to me, I put the chickens and the cattle next to each other, because I'm not just seeing chicken as something that is giving me eggs and meat, but also something that is helping the cattle remove its insects from its body, or help cleaning that space up. So if you place both the elements together, which is integration, the beneficial outcomes are more, rather than seeing them as two separate elements. Next. Using small and slow solutions. So this is very, very important, even this one, because anything that you want to start, anything that you want to implement in life, anything that you want to start off in a garden or in your land, you have to always start small. Starting small is very important, and going slow is very important. Nowadays, we as humans are in rush. We lost patience. We don't have patience. We just want everything tick, 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 done. So the art of patience is gone. People are not seeing things like how they used to be. So when you start off small, there's always something that you learn. The more you observe, the more you interact, the better the outcome is. So for example, if I'm starting a land and I'm starting to sow something in my land, and I have 50 acres of land, and I want to do all the 50 acres, and I just go at a stretch and sow off all the 50 acres. So something happened and all my crop is gone, or all my trees are gone, or everything that I did on the farm is gone. What happens? What mistake did I do there? So when you are looking at, when you're doing things in a bigger and a very large situations, if there is a loss that is happening to you in any way, be it financial, be it in terms of plans, be it in terms of money, be it in any terms, when you are doing something in a large extent, the loss will also be in the similar way. So anything that you do need to start off small, because even if you lose something, you're going to just lose a little bit of it, but not the whole. So if like I said, I gave an example of starting of 50 acres. Imagine I just start off with 1 acre for my first year, or I just start off in my balcony first. Before one start going for rooftop and establishing everything, just because you wanted to do, if something goes wrong, it means the entire thing is gone. So if you start off very small, be it in your balconies or be it in the 1 acre, I said, if there is any feedback that the nature is giving me or any situation is giving me, I accept that feedback and self-regulate myself and tell Sneha, this is not the right way to go. See, I've done it 1 acre or in my backyard, and I faced this problem. So how would I solve it if I do it in 50 acres? That's how I think. But I don't. One shouldn't just go and start everything in a large extent. So using small and slow solutions is very important. Next. Use and value diversity is another principle. The the diversity what we are talking now is not just in terms of plant diversity. It could be any diversity, even diversity of your food. If you're eating lady's finger every day, what happens? Just one vegetable. Okay. So diversity even in your food, diversity in the different fields of work that you're having. If from a single crop, even in cropping patterns, there is, if you just go for one particular cropping variety or one particular cropping system, there's always, it's just like how you do with the small solutions. If you're going for one particular crop or one particular vegetable, there is less nutrition that you are getting as a human, there's less nutrition that soil is getting, and there is no diversity where if you're losing your crop, you're losing the whole crop that you have put. If imagine if I have different kinds of crops in my cropland and not just one particular crop, which means there is diversity. Even if I lose one, there is always an option of having one, right? So it's the same even in your home when you're cooking. If you have diverse varieties of food, it means you're getting diverse variety of nutrients into your body, into your body. So diversity is very important. Diversity in terms of seeds, this is very important. Having seed diversity, saving seed diversity. Seeds are something which are called land races. Those are the ones that we are losing. Saving heirloom seeds, the diversity of seed. Once in India, if you see, each seed had hundreds and thousands of varieties, but now if you come down, you just have 2 varieties or 3 varieties of each. So as the diversity is losing, the natural elements that are attached to that diverse systems is also losing. So diversity is very important in our thinking, in our lives, in our soil, and in our ecosystem. Using edges and valuing marginals, this specifically you can apply in the context of growing food. When you are growing food in a piece of land or in a garden, so the more the edges you have, so not planting in straight lines but having more edges, the more the edges, the more number you can plant, the more nutrition the plant gets. The more straight it is, imagine if I have just straight lines, the number of plants that I can plant there is could be 50. But if I go in different edges are like, if you have, did you ever see a river flowing? How does it flow? Like a serpentine, like a river. Whenever it's flowing like a river, there are a lot of edges. So when you see a lot of edges where I'm planting in a linear pattern, it's just 50. But when I'm going in a serpentine pattern, it's 60 or 70. So using that space for nutrients and using that space to incorporate more plants or more things is very much beneficial. Even in the river ecosystem, again, like I said, the patterns and lot of curves, when the curves happen, there's a lot of sedimentation, lot of nutrient that the river leaves on the river beds. So having meandering pattern is something very important. It's not having using edges beneficially is very important. And also one other example in an urban context is when you're working together. So you in your office you have two different departments. One is the sales department, and one is a marketing department. So people living on both the sides on this corner have a different benefit. But the people who are living in between both the sales and the marketing, who are in the corner, they benefit more because they have access to sales, they have access to marketing. So that is an edge in an office setting. You get to access both the departments. Next one. Creatively use and respond to change. This in today's context, you can think of how things have rapidly been changing for the last couple of years or last few decades. And you have been so whenever there is something like that happening, we have to creatively use that situation and respond to the change. So what happened when there was the situation of COVID, when there was COVID, and then everybody has learned something, right? Everybody has learned something that we need to protect nature, we need to make healthy soils, we need to eat good food, we need to reduce our dependence on medicines as much as possible and start eating healthy food. So that is a situation which forced you to respond, which forced the humanity, which forced the humans to respond to that change and creatively make use of the situation. So any situation like that, if there is any situation like that, we have to creatively respond. So if I say, um, in the olden days the rainfall pattern has been like this, or my great grandfathers have been doing like that, and I will still continue to do that, will that work in the current context? Will that continue in this present situation? No, right? Because their practice might be a good one, but if I implement it in the wrong time, where the rainfall pattern has changed, where the summers, the seasons are changing, everything has been changing, right? Everything has been changing, but I still want to implement the same thing that my great grandfather has done. It will not work in this context. What should I do then? I should creatively use that situation and respond to the change. I have to do it in a different way. Maybe I used to sow my crops in June earlier. Now I should do it only in June second week because the rains are not happening. So you need to make your own changes and respond creatively, use that situation and respond to the changes. So these are the 12 important principles of permaculture, and this forms the basis. These are not just there are not just 12 principles, and they're way beyond that, and you can keep adding more to it based on your thinking, based on your working, based on your observations. But these are the design principles which you can apply to design anywhere, be it your life, be it your growing, be it your farming, be it your work sector. Are we out of time, Prerna? So I just want to show you some examples of catch and store energy. So this is in an urban context. You can see filling the water that's coming off your rooftop. Nowadays, many apartments of many localities in Hyderabad, they are running out of groundwater. Yet a lot of rainwater is being wasted. They don't utilize it. And the concretization of roads, everything is concrete, where there is no scope for water to get into the soil. There is no scope for the water to recharge the groundwater. So having putting up tumblers, putting up buckets, and using that rainwater as an energy, and you can save a lot of water. You can also have the rainwater recharge pits being constructed in your apartments, and there are various ways to think of if you want to store that energy which nature is giving you. The second example, like I said, is storing the sun energy, doing things on right time. There we are making arm papad, because that is on the only time where you can use the sun energy and dehydrate. Once the monsoon comes, which means you lost the energy of the sun. Yeah, the same here. There's a farmer's land where they do not have it's extremely dry land. They don't have source of water, they don't have a bore well. So making these rainwater harvesting pits, which are called the trenches, is very essential, had benefited them a lot, because when it rained, this is how the water got filled up in the trenches. So these small interventions, when you do, nature is giving you enough, so you just need to catch and store that energy and utilize it beneficially, rather than drilling into mother earth and extracting the water off the borewell. There are ways that you can do it, and this is a picture from last monsoon where there was water filled up. So this maintains a moisture for so long in the soil, the water harvesting in the lands. So this is one of the pictures from the farmers land that we have implemented. uh, obtain a yield, like I said, any energy that you put in growing or in doing something, you should always get something in return, because your energy should not go in waste. This is also a palette of diversity, the diversified food. It's not just one thing. If you see here, there are different kinds of food from my backyard or from my farm. So if, because I have these many types of food I'm eating, one can get different kinds of nutrients. One can see different kinds of life that is thriving. If it's just one variety, even the soil gets bored, you would get bored, and there is no meaning for the existence. Next one. Next, please. Yeah, like I was talking about the renewable resources, using of bullocks instead of tractors or any other machinery. We would like to bring back the traditional practices as much as possible, because again, going back to the machinery, going to the machinery, implementing more of using more of non-renewable resources is not good for our future. So bring back the biological resources as much as possible. Next one, please. Next. So here is an example of making like raised beds for vegetables, where you don't see us growing in a straight pattern, but we have followed the pattern of waves or like meanders, where it's all wavy but not in a straight line. In this way, you can utilize the space more efficiently rather than having just straight line, and the nutrition intake would be less, and also the number of plants growing there would be lesser. Next. Yeah, integrate rather than segregate. This we have gone through. I just give an example of the chicken coop here and the cattle shed. Next. Yes, small and slow solutions, where there is no one size fits all solution. You need to think of your own solutions which are small and which are easy within your reach. You should not go for something that you cannot meet, or you cannot one cannot go and do. They should always be accessible and something that you can do, rather than taking up a whole burden on yourself and trying to do as maximum. Next. Yeah, diversity. This is a small piece of land. It's less than an acre, but if you can see the different species of plants here, there's a lot of diversity. So imagine if I just have gone for mango plantation or guava plantation or lime or sapota. It's just one fruit that you're going to get, but imagine you have different species in that small space that you have everything that you can eat in 365 days, because each fruit that you get out is seasonal. It's not just one season you get and the rest of the seasons you don't. So every plant has its own fruiting time and flowering time and seasons, right? So when you enter a space like that, that space should be able to give you food all throughout the year. You should design in such a way that it's giving you something all throughout the year, not just at certain point of the year, or in summers or winters, just not those times, but all 365 days. Next. Yeah, this is also an example of diversity. You see this one, the different kinds of seeds that are displayed here. When we talk about tuar dal, kandipappu, as you all know, when you talk about something, you all know only the variety of tuar dal or kandipappu that you're eating at home, which is the one yellow variety. But what you don't know is there are around like 30-40 different varieties just from this region of tur dals that exist, and all those seeds are now diminishing. Like there is no one who's growing them, there is no one who's saving them, because a lot of hybrids have come up and the traditional varieties, the native varieties of seeds are going down. Earlier there was that diversity. Just because there was that diversity, the food people were consuming was diverse, the strength they had was so much, and they were able to do a lot of work, unlike us who does a little bit of heavy lifting these days, and then we are tired, we don't want to do anymore, because our food lacks diversity, our food lacks nutrition, our and everything. Again, if you talk about why does it lack all of these, because there's no diversity and there is no health in the soil health is diminishing rapidly. If you When we talk about like permaculture and the diversity, if you when we are growing foods, so the baskets in the previous picture is just a 1 day harvest where you find different things. Imagine I get the same cluster bean every day and eating cluster bean every day. It is something that you are going to get fed up with. So when we say permaculture is about diversity, it's diversity in everything, even in the vegetables that you eat. So you can mix all together and make, rather than just eating one single thing and buying something from outside. Next, please. Yeah, like I've given the example of edges. Anything on the edge is more, the growth is more, and there are more benefits of being on the edge. Here in this picture, you can see, this is an edge, right? There is a river, and there is water, and there is greenery, and this is a cold desert. On the top you see the brown thing, that's a cold desert, and there is river and there is greenery. So the plants which you see in this image are on the edge. So the ones in the edge are getting the benefits of the river and also the cold desert, which is on the other side, where there's getting the soil and the nutrients, and they're growing very well on the edge. Next. Yes, this has been discussed. Next. All right, that's it for today. If you have any questions, let's discuss in the Q&A.
Thank you, Sneha. That was a very informative session. There are so many appreciation, and there are so many questions that has come up on the chat box. We'll go to the Q&A, and I request if anyone has any questions that they want to elaborate, they want to ask, you can use the virtual raise hand option, and you can ask the question live. And so before we go to the Q&A round, I would like to request the audience to take a 30 seconds to answer a poll for us. The purpose of the poll is to help us understand you a little better, so we can better curate the topics that we bring to you. There'll be a pop-up on your screen. You can use those. You can answer those poll questions. Um, so I would like to add a little bit about Vishwa and how the vision of Vishwa, kind of brings these kind of topics and the experts, social change makers in various fields to you. The idea behind Vishwa is it's an online platform for everyday change makers and social champions. It's a crowdfunding and a crowdsourcing platform that is aimed at helping anyone find support they need in their efforts to have dreams for themselves and for others, and in the same process make the world a better place. Our visionary founder, Mrs. Shrivani, has this vision that while she was growing up, she had a lot of prominent personalities through which to whom she interacted, and she felt that that kind of shaped up her future. And she believed that not everybody get a chance to come in a platform and interact with everyone who is kind of moving towards the change, who's making the difference in the society, has a vision. And with that same vision, she brings Vishwa Talks Junior and Vishwa Talks Youth at Vishwa. Vishwa Talks Junior is for children who are between the age of 8 to 15, and Vishwa Talks Youth are for these college-going students who are in between the age of 18 to 25. So when you are a child, you interact with few people, you go through, you see some stories, you understand what they have done. You hear, even if you hear two words from them. For an example, if a child has interacted with late Mr. APJ Abdul Kalam Azad, that impression that has been left in that child, he or she would carry it for the rest of her life, and that will shape up the future. That's what the vision for Vishwa Talks is. We are bringing the social change maker like Aranya, like Miss Neha, who's doing the actual work towards the society to bring this community together, to build up a better place for everybody. And a lot of other such prominent personalities, prominent change makers in the society. With that vision, we have launched Vishwa Talks Junior and Vishwa Talks Youth, continuing with the regular Vishwa Talks that we have been doing it for the last 1 year. If you are in a school, or if your kids are in a school, if you are a professor or you're a teacher, you can register your children, being a teenager, they being a kid. You can register them. You can register a whole school. You can register your college for Vishwa Talks Junior and Youth, and we will bring curated topics and will bring the change makers that will help shape up, that will impart knowledge, that will impart wisdom, that will bring you closer to the nature, to Indian history, to Indian culture, Indian rich heritage, and the other causes that we support, and they're going to benefit it from. I would like to move towards the Q&A round now. So I see there's some questions in the chat box. If someone has any other question that they want to elaborate, you can use the raise hand option. Someone says, I've heard of that in permaculture you let termites remain. Can you please explain this?
Yes, we let termites remain because they are also living beings and they have their right to stay here, or because that is their land, that is where they survive, that is where the termites live. So the termites, when people look at termites, they always think of them as destructive, but you don't look at that. Again, the first principle of permaculture, you don't observe what's happening, you don't interact, there is nothing, you just think because you heard somewhere that termites are destructive, you think that they are destructive. Yes, termite does attack wood which is moist and which is about to die. So when you always look at termites, termites are the ones which are eating the dead wood or the wood that is about to die, almost about to die, but never a fresh one. So there is no point in us spraying something or killing the termites, because they are doing their role. They are wonderful decomposers. If you look at what termites do, especially in laterite soils and red soils, they break down all the leaf and litter, all the organic content, and break down into very fine particles which the soil needs. Soil nutrients, where the soil is getting for nutrients is from the leaf and all the litter that's falling from the trees. The termites and the microorganisms are breaking down, and those nutrients are being fed to the soil. So termites do good thing. They are wonderful decomposers. They're wonderful organisms which break down organic matter. So termites attack something, or termites eat on the wood only when the wood is dead and the wood has a lot of moisture, and if the plant is about to die. Only if there are these three conditions, that is when the termites attack something, eat something, not on a living thing, not on a living tree. Even if you see sometimes some of the barks of the trees, the termites just make homes like this and then they go up. So even in that case, the termites are not killing the tree. The termites are eating the dead bark that is on top of the tree. They go however taller the dead bark is, they eat till there and then they just come down. So you need to observe all these. It's not just like you hear people saying termites are bad and then you start killing them. Termites do a wonderful job. If there are no termites, there's no breakdown of leaf and litter in the laterite soils especially.
Got it. So I think while you were explaining how in a certain land we should plant trees who gives fruits for different seasons. So I think Ms. Neha, she's asking, every plant is different, needs different quantity of water. So having different types types on same land, isn't it having trouble for the farmer to balance the water and soil? Isn't that a challenge for him?
Having different types of plants.
Plants that requires different quantity of water. Would that be a challenge for the farmer to balance it?
Okay, so it depends on what kind of plantation the farmer is doing. If he is going for a local, so if I'm talking about a rain-fed region, the farmer is not giving water. Not every place the farmer gives water to the plants. Only in the initial first 2 years, irrespective of what plant it is, they give water. But as they keep growing, if they are local, again talking about local is very important. If I'm planting a local tree which is local to that region, it is acclimatized to that climate. It grows in various conditions. It takes water in different seasons. If you're growing something exotic which is not from here, or you've got it from somewhere else, so the plants like those have different kinds of requirements, different kinds of needs. If you're going for local varieties, local species, they acclimatize to the local requirements, and they have their own, the resiliency is more than compared to the other species of plants.
Got it. So I have one question. Uh, I was very inquisitive about when I got to know about permaculture, and I wanted to understand, like, so Indian history, Indian culture in general has everything has a scientific impact. Everything has a scientific meaning. Whatever has been listed in our grunts, in our Vedas. Does permaculture also has a reference from the ancient history, or is it something that has been developed over the time to kind of
I
include?
I think permaculture is just a term. It's just a
Okay.
tag. But if you see what's in it, it is something that the Indians have been doing it for so long. It is not a
Yes.
rocket science. It is not something that we have just borrowed it from a Western ideology. It is something that India had in its roots. Everything that you read in permaculture is something that is existing or has existed in the Indian system, but at some point it's all gone. We are just trying to revive them back. It just has a tag of permaculture or name of permaculture, but whatever we talk about is something that's existing. Even when we talk about kitchen gardens or anything, if we talk about grey water systems, where we talk about using the used water reuse again, but if you go to any rural setting, all the kitchen water, whatever they wash the vessels with, all the kitchen water is being redirected into their backyards where they're growing the tomatoes, where they're growing brinjals. So grey water system is just a term in permaculture, but that has been followed in our traditional systems and so long. Even now rural villages, if you go, that is what they've been practicing. It's just that a sect of people have forgotten that there are some things like that exist, and nowadays there is no people don't go to villages. People don't know how a village is, how a rural rural life is. So for people like those, these might sound something new, so which is something they are very surprised about, but these are all many things that are already existed.
Yeah, and the West is also following it. They are, I think, more than the awareness that we have, or we have forgotten our roots. Like, uh, West is adapting it. West is following these kind of agricultural practices, learning from India, learning from. I'm sure there. I have heard there are so many organizations that come and learn from Aranya, and they're taking back these principles and they're following this in their own agricultural settings. One more thing, that when I was going through when I was doing my research, uh, I heard sir saying that be it a bedrock, be it a rocky land, anything, might not be suitable for growing something, but still through permaculture, you can create that into a lush garden, or in fact even a small forest.
Mhm.
How is that possible? How through permaculture we do that? And also, just to add on to that, uh, us living in an urban setting, if we have a piece of land, or if we have it in our own home, moving towards organic farming, growing their own food, how in and the land is not always suitable for growing something. They're doing it in the pot. How we should utilize through permaculture in our daily lives, in a common homely setting, and make sure that we are growing our own food.
In an urban setting, you mean in an urban backyard or front yard, or how in a
Yes,
small piece
yes,
of land, or
yes. and front yard and a backyard, basically.
Okay, so you can just start off with very small things, be it vegetables or anything, that even the tomato that you're eating today, you can just remove the seeds and add it and see which one's coming up well. Sometimes it's also trial and error. It's not like everything you sow has to come back. Is there a rule that where you think that I'm sowing this here and it has to come back? So even like I said, observing and interacting is very important. When you sow something, if something is growing well, you can go ahead and plant for that. Like, and also when you mentioned about the bedrock and the soil, how it can be done, uh, even here patience is something that is very important. Everything doesn't just happen like this. It needs years of perseverance, years of efforts that goes into it when you're converting that kind of thing. But also when we talk about small scale farmers, small land holding farmers, again, local species, planting local species which doesn't need a lot of water, doesn't need a lot of inputs from your end. And like I said, rainwater harvesting in their farmlands where moisture can be held for longer, and only planting species which depend on rains rather than excess water, where there is no flood irrigation. If we talk about flood irrigation, this area doesn't have flood irrigation, there is no as much water. So based on the land, based on the type of land, based on the local agroclimatical conditions, based on the local species of plants, one can design or one can go for it, rather than just going for something that. So we have to respect land, we have to respect soil. The basic thing that we don't do is we don't respect of them. We always you have to eat what your land gives. That's the first rule that everybody has to understand. Eat what your land gives. Don't enforce your thoughts into your soil and ask your soil to give back. You want broccoli. If your broccoli is not growing in your soil, that means the land doesn't want to give you broccoli, because the land cannot give you broccoli. It's you who wants broccoli, and you're forcing the soil to give broccoli, and you start pumping whatever nutrients it wants into your land. So you have to eat what is the land giving you, what's the local greens that it's giving you, what's the climatic condition is giving you, rather than you forcing the land to give you something for you.
Got it.
Yeah.
Mr. Prashad is asking, can you tell us briefly about zero budget farming?
I I hear a lot of zero budget natural farming happening in the Andhra, and that's also another school of thought, which is a good thing. So any school of thought, just not permaculture, be it biodynamic farming, or Subhash Palekar method, or zero budget natural farming, they all are different school of thoughts and having different names, where the principles, whatever we spoke about, is the same. That is a good thing. ZBNF is a good farming technique or a farming method, whatever you call it. So wherever you're following those, there are some things in common in all of these school of thoughts, where they talk about diversity, they talk about less inputs, where we talk this less inputs and more diversity and involving livestock, cattle. These are all something which are common in all school of thoughts, but the just the name is different and some other principles are different, but it has its own importance when it comes to farming as a practice.
Got it. There are a lot of appreciation in the chat box. I'm trying to also the questions out of amongst all appreciations. Mr. Arka was asking, do we need to do soil testing?
Soil testing, yes, if you want to do a soil testing, you can get a soil test done, but before you also get your soil sample and send it out to a soil testing lab. It is not always about soil testing. You can first, touching the soil is important, seeing the soil is important, feeling the soil is important. And what soil should always be a living, one should consider soil as a living entity, because that is where you're getting all your food from, that is where we are living on, that is where what we eat is coming from. So soil, one has to consider soil as a living entity. And then we need to talk about what food does the soil need. What food does the soil need? It needs more organic matter. More organic matter needs to be added to the soils now. So once we keep our soils rich by adding whatever the food that the soil needs, Sometimes you don't always need to go for a soil testing, but first visually seeing the soil, touching the soil, smelling the soil, digging the soil a little deep, and you can see different kinds of soil. That is when, after you do those basic things, then you can always send it out to a soil testing report to see how your soil is and um, what are the things that the soil contains, rather than what are the things that the soil is lacking. Because it's when you go to a hospital, what happens when you go to a hospital, you get all your tests done, right? There is no human being, when you go to a hospital, all your reports are extremely perfect. All of us are lacking calcium, for example. Vitamin D is something that we are all short of. So there is nothing which shows perfect. Even the same in the soil report, not all soils are rich in everything, but the moment you get your soil report and you see something is lacking in it, all your energies are gone. So I'm just comparing it because once you get your soil test and you see what your soil is lacking, sometimes it also feels that you see that the nitrogen is less. So you have, what the moment you see that you have less vitamin D, what do? Instead of going out, standing in the sun and getting the sun rays, you take a vitamin D3 capsule. You're going to do the same with your soil. You'll start injecting your NPK, you'll start injecting all sorts of things in your soil.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I think we have addressed most of the questions. And before we leave the webinar today, I want to request everybody to, if they have any clothes, if they have any unused items, or they are not using it currently, we have a platform where through you, we can end this stigma of using the used products. We can end this stigma, like not just for the one who needs, anyone who has a mobile phone or has a laptop that they're not using, or they're having any clothes and that they have bought that they're not using, they can donate it if they want, for free. So it gives us great pleasure to announce that we have launched a materials vertical on vishwa.org. In addition to the fundraisers, this vertical further enhances the Vishwa platform by bridging the gap between people who donate materials like clothes, material like books, furnitures, etc., between the people who need these materials. Donors can list their items such as clothes, books, electronics, etc., on the website that they wish to give away for free. And those who want to receive the items can browse them through them, connect with the donor, and request for the item. So right now we have launched this in Hyderabad. Anyone who has joined us from Hyderabad can please go to the website, list your items, and if you want anything, you can request for those items, connect with the donor, and get these items in hand. In the same process, we are welcoming champions of social change. Vishwa, we are building up a Vishwa community. Vishwa, so it's the people who come, when they come together, makes a difference. So we are making a community of individuals who has vision, who wants to help the society, and they do not know how to come forward and or help it, or people who need the help. If any one of you have an NGO, who have an organization, and you want, or you are coming across anyone who needs help, you can register on vishwa.org. You can start your fundraiser, or anyone who feel the urge to help anybody, who see someone who can from your help, from your funds, or even not through your funds, not monetarily, if you can share it with the people who help you, we all can come together and make a difference in the society. So join the Vishwa community, be a Vishwa champion of change. And I'll give you one example. We recently completed a fundraiser at a college principal, Mr. Srivastav. He had a student called Shrujana. She was a child with cerebral palsy, and she used to walk all through from her home to the college for her education. And he felt very deeply about it, and he started a fundraiser on the website on Vishwa platform. They're hailing from Hyderabad, and they wanted to get her an electric tricycle. Recently, Shrujana got her electric tricycle, a very genuine person, synonym. He came forward and donated for this fundraiser for some amount of rupees 40,000. He doesn't want his name to be disclosed, but he is a part of Vishwa champion, and he's a Vishwa champion, part of a Vishwa community. The fundraiser was run by Mr. Madhu Srivastava, principal of Government Junior College in Ramareddy village in Nizamabad, district of Telangana. Now this electric tricycle will help her to commute for a college and complete her education. So physical disability should not come in between anyone's education. Talking about education, we have Totapalli Zila Parishad High School who needs fund to build up a toilet for girl children. Again, a very genuine person came forward and started this fundraiser, who saw that these girls did not had a proper toilet in this school, and due to whatsoever reason the school is not able to construct this toilet. And over the years, it has been so many years that these girls have to go to their friend's house or neighbor's house in between their classes to use the toilet. These toilets are in open space. There are details in the website. There are videos showing what these girls are facing, the testimonials of these girls, videos or in images showing the pictures of these schools. Please go to the website, know more about them, see that they are genuine people who need this help, and please do as much as you can. If you can donate, please donate and support the fundraiser. And please help these girls to build up a toilet in their school. We have other fundraisers on the website with Roshni Trust, a 30-year-old NGO in Hyderabad, who are getting psychiatrist help at your doorstep, who are making up psychiatry or psychologist help in various camps, and especially for rural areas, especially for semi-urban areas or underprivileged people. So help them getting that facilities to the doorsteps, to the underprivileged people, because they are the ones who are also going through the mental health issues, but they are not talking about it and they need help too. Roshni Trust is helping in bridging that gap. There are other fundraisers for an old age home for children living with HIV. Please go to the website vishwa.org, www.vishwa.org. You will get to see all these fundraisers. You will feel strongly about this. What we do at Vishwa is we make sure that only the genuine fundraisers are listed up there who need the gap, because when we are ready to help someone, we know that we can help someone. God has given us that much that we can come ahead and help so much with as little or as much as we can. But we do not know whom to help, or we do not know if the fund is going in the right place. Vishwa is the platform bridging that gap, starting from Hyderabad, the whole of Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. So with that note, I would like to thank you, Ms. Neha, for a wonderful, wonderful presentation, like it is being said in the chat box by so many other people, that it was wonderfully presented talk. Thank you so much for such an insightful session. A lot of us got to know so many things about this. I'm sure there are a lot of experts, a lot of people who have this technical knowledge have joined. But apart from that, anyone who did not know about this got to learn from it, and I'm sure they're going to apply it whatsoever way possible. I would like to thank the audience for taking out time and joining us today. I am sure you are taking away a lot of, taking the benefits out of this session. This session would be available on YouTube within 3 days of time. You can watch this video on our YouTube channel called Vishwa Talks. The talk is also live on YouTube, so you will any day you will see this talk live on our channel, the whole talk, and just bits and pieces, the highlights of this session would be edited and posted shortly on Vishwa Talks channel. Thank you so much. With that note, I close on today's Vishwa Talk. See you next week when we are having a very important session with Roshni Trust and our speaker Manisha Shah on decluttering the mind and spirit through the act of forgiveness. So anyone right from the age of say 2025 to an elderly who are feeling that conflict in mind, who are not able to move forward, it's an healing workshop through which you will be able to move towards the next phase. We will be able to keep the past traumas behind and move towards the next step. And Manisha Shah, we have had a lot of times on our on Vishwa Talks, and there are videos about her through of spirituality, of yoga, healing, and practices. You can see her videos on Vishwa Talks channel on YouTube as well, and subscribe to YouTube channel, and you will keep seeing these kind of important talks, important speakers throwing lights on these kind of pertinent topics from education, mental health, etc. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Prerna. Thank you, Vishwa Talks. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you. Please join a breakout room, Sneha.
Sure, I haven't got.
మై నేమ్ ఇస్ మాధురి. నేను జిల్లా పరిషత్ కొత్తపల్లి స్కూల్లో 10th క్లాస్ చదువుతున్నాను. ఇక్కడ చాలా స్ట్రెంత్ ఉండడం వలన మాకు టాయిలెట్స్ చాలా ఇబ్బంది అవుతుంది. ఒక్కొక్కసారి మా ఫ్రెండ్స్ క్యూ కట్టడం చూడలేక మా ఇల్లు దగ్గర ఉంది, అక్కడ తోలుకపోయి వాష్రూమ్ చేయించుకొని తోలుకరావాల్సి వస్తుంది. అలాగే బాత్రూమ్లలో వాటర్ ఉండవు. పైన బాత్రూమ్ వెంకిలో పెద్ద ట్యాంక్ ఉంది, ఎక్కితే ఎవరన్నా ఎక్కి చూస్తే మొత్తం కనిపిస్తుంది. ఇంకొన్ని బాత్రూమ్ కట్టించాలని కోరుకుంటున్నాను.
పేరు సృజన. నాకు కాలు చెయ్యి ఇబ్బందిగా ఉంది. వారు వెళ్ళి ట్రైసైకిల్ ఇప్పించారు. విశ్వ ఆర్గనైజేషన్కి థ్యాంక్ యూ. సైకిల్ ఇప్పించారు. విశ్వ ఆర్గనైజేషన్కి థ్యాంక్ యూ.